Episode 84.
Expelliarmus!
Said Neville, and Harry, caught unawares, felt his wand fly out of his hand.
I did it!
Said Neville gleefully.
I've never done it before. I did it!
Good one, said Harry encouragingly, deciding not to point out that in a real duel situation, Neville's opponent was unlikely to be staring in the opposite direction with his wand held loosely at his side. Listen, Neville, can you take it in turns to practice with Ron and Hermione for a couple minutes so I can walk around and see how the rest are doing? Harry moved off into the middle of the room. Something very odd was happening to Zacharias Smith. Every time he opened his mouth to disarm Anthony Goldstein, his own wand would fly out of his hand, yet Anthony did not seem to be making a sound. Harry did not have to look far for the solution of the mystery, however. Fred and George were several feet from Smith and taking it in turns to point their wands at his back.
Sorry, Harry,
said George hastily when Harry caught his eye.
couldn't resist.
Harry walked around the other pairs, trying to correct those who were doing the spell wrong. Ginny was teamed with Michael Corner. She was doing very well, whereas Michael was either very bad or unwilling to jinx her. Ernie Macmillan was flourishing his wand unnecessarily, giving his partner time to get in under his guard. The Creevy brothers were enthusiastic, but erratic, and mainly responsible for all the books leaping off the shelves around them. Luna Lovegood was similarly patchy, occasionally sending Justin Finch Fletchley's wand spinning out of his hand, and at other times merely causing his hair to stand on end. "Okay, stop!" Harry shouted. "Stop! Stop!" "I need a whistle," he thought, and immediately spotted one lying on top of the nearest row of books. Harry caught it up and blew hard. Everyone lowered their wands. "That wasn't bad," said Harry, "but there's definite room for improvement." Zacharias Smith glared at him. "Let's try again." He moved off around the room again, stopping here and there to make suggestions. Slowly, the general performance improved. He avoided going near Cho and her friend for a while, but after walking twice around every other pair in the room, he felt he could not ignore them any longer.
"Oh, no," said Cho rather wildly as he approached. "Expelliarmus. I'm sorry, Marietta."
Her curly-haired friend's sleeve had caught fire. Marietta extinguished it with her own wand and glared at Harry as though it was his fault.
"You made me nervous. I was doing all right before then,"
Cho told Harry ruefully. "That was quite good," Harry lied. But when she raised her eyebrows, he said, "Well, no, it was lousy, but I know you can do it properly. I was watching from over there." She laughed. Her friend Marietta looked at them rather sourly and turned away.
"Don't mind her," Cho muttered. "She doesn't really want to be here, but I made her come with me. Her parents have forbidden her to do anything that might upset Umbridge, you see. Her mum works for the ministry."
"What about your parents?" asked Harry.
"Well, they've forbidden me to get on the wrong side of Umbridge, too," said Cho, drawing herself up proudly. "But if they think I'm not going to fight you-know-who after what happened to Cedric—" She broke off, looking rather confused, and an awkward silence fell between them. Terry Boots' wand went whizzing past Harry's ear and hit Alicia Spinner hard on the nose. "Well, my father is very supportive of any anti-ministry action,"
said Luna Lovegood proudly from just behind Harry. Evidently she had been eavesdropping on his conversation while Justin Finch Fletchley attempted to disentangle himself from the robes that had flown up over his head.
"He's always saying he'd believe anything of Fudge. I mean, the number of goblins Fudge has had assassinated. And, of course, he uses the Department of Mysteries to develop terrible poisons, which he feeds secretly to anybody who disagrees with him. And then there's his umbungular slash-kilter."
"Don't ask," Harry muttered to Cho as she opened her mouth, looking puzzled. She giggled.
"Hey, Harry,
Hermione called from the other end of the room.
"Have you checked the time?"
He looked down at his watch and received a shock. It was already 9:10, which meant they needed to get back to their common rooms immediately, or risk being caught and punished by Filch for being out of grounds. He blew his whistle. Everybody stopped shouting, "Expelliarmus!" and the last couple of wands clattered to the floor. "Well, that was pretty good," said Harry, "but we've overrun. We'd better leave it here. Same time, same place next week?" "Sooner!" said Dean Thomas eagerly, and many people nodded in agreement. Angelina, however, said quickly, "The Quidditch season's about to start. We need team practices, too." "Well, let's say next Wednesday night, then," said Harry, "and we can decide on additional meetings then. Come on, we better get going." He pulled the Marauders map out again and checked it carefully for signs of teachers on the 7th floor. He let them all leave in 3s and 4s, watching their tiny dots anxiously to see that they returned safely to their dormitories. The Hufflepuffs to the basement corridor that also led to the kitchens, the Ravenclaws to a tower on the west side of the castle, and the Gryffindors along the corridor to the 7th floor and the fat lady's portrait.
"That was really, really good, Harry," said Hermione when finally it was just her, Harry, and Ron left.
"Yeah, it was," said Ron enthusiastically, as they slipped out of the door and watched it melt back into stone behind them. "Did you see me disarm Hermione, Harry?"
"Only once," said Hermione, stung. "I got you loads more than you got me."
"I did not only get you once, I got you at least 3 times.
"Well, if you're counting the one where you tripped over your own feet and knocked the wand out of my hand."
They argued all the way back to the common room, but Harry was not listening to them. He had one eye on the Marauders map, but he was also thinking of how Cho had said he made her nervous. Chapter 19. The Lion and the Serpent. Harry felt as though he were carrying some kind of talisman inside his chest over the following 2 weeks, a glowing secret that supported him through Umbridge's classes and even made it possible for him to smile blandly as he looked into her horrible, bulging eyes. He and the DA were resisting her under her very nose, doing the very thing that she and the Ministry most feared. And whenever he was supposed to be reading Wilbert Slinkhart's book during her lessons, he dwelled instead on satisfying memories of their most recent meetings, remembering how Neville had successfully disarmed Hermione, how Colin Creevey had mastered the impediment jinx after 3 meetings' hard effort, how Parvati Patil had produced such a good reductor curse that she had reduced the table carrying all the sneakoscopes to dust. He was finding it almost impossible to fix a regular night of the week for DA meetings, and they had to accommodate 3 separate Quidditch teams' practices, which were often rearranged depending on the weather conditions. But Harry was not sorry about this. He had a feeling that it was probably better to keep the timing of their meetings unpredictable. If anyone was watching them, it would be hard to make out a pattern. Hermione soon devised a very clever method of communicating the time and date of the next meeting to all the members in case they needed to change it at short notice, because it wouldn't look so suspicious if people from different houses were seen crossing the Great Hall to talk to each other too often. She gave each of the members of the DA a fake galleon. Ron became very excited when he saw the basket at first, convinced that she was actually giving out gold.
"You see the numerals around the edge of the coins?" Hermione said, holding one up for examination at the end of their 4th meeting. The coin gleamed fat and yellow in the light from the torches. "On real galleons, that's just a serial number referring to the goblin who cast the coin. On these fake coins, though, the numbers will change to reflect the time and date of the next meeting. The coins will grow hot when the date changes, so if you're carrying them in a pocket, you'll be able to feel them."